Audience, I'd like to thank you for joining me here at Elisha Space. We are a sanctuary for healing, growth, and authentic conversations. I am your host, Elisha, and today I have a very special episode, heart expanding, heartwarming episode with you where I have my guest. Morty Gottlieb is the founder of the Game Changer group. And within that group, he just, in his own way, has created a space for honest, vulnerable dialogue within having a passion for men to heal from trauma and rebuilding self-belief. And he also believes in experimental methods as well, like psychodrama, movement, and music. And so I also will add that he is, because people are like, what is she talking about? Is he like even legally able to do that? Yes, he is. Sorry. He is a licensed social worker and he's able to, and he has his own practice and all those things. So he's licensed and able to do those things. If I missed anything, Morty, I greatly apologize. But I'd like to welcome you to the show and feel free to add anything I might have left out. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Elisha. It's really great to be here. I'm excited to share my story, not because I wanted my story to happen to me, and because it did, and how could I inspire other people? Because so many of the lessons that I learned throughout my life, I wish I had known 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. It would have saved me from so much suffering. And the access we have today wasn't available then. I grew up, you probably remember before the internet came around, but I remember when we had dial-up, we had AOL. There was no such thing as podcast. There was no such thing as YouTube. The accessibility to this information just wasn't there. Right. You had to go to a therapist, you had to go to a priest, a rabbi, a mentor. But a lot of times it wasn't easy. When somebody's feeling shame or embarrassed about their situation, it's easy to tell them, go talk about it, go be open about it. And in the moment, it's really challenging. So I'm so grateful for what you're doing, for giving people an opportunity to hear messages and stories and solutions that they desperately need and they won't get otherwise. So it's such a beautiful platform, and I'm so grateful to share. And while my passion is working with men, and that's what I do most of my days, my story and the work that I do applies to men, it applies to women, it applies to children. It really applies to everybody. Maybe I'll go to it a little bit later. I actually did some writing after we spoke last week. I'm like, well, what is my story? How do I put that into pen to paper? What does that look like? And maybe I'll share with you some of the reflections that I wrote. But first, I want to share with you a general outline about who I am, how I got here. My name is Morty Gottlieb. I grew up, maybe the accent is clear, maybe it's not. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. And if I had it my way, I would be a pastry chef. That was my dream. That was my goal. That was my passion. I was excited about it. It was fun. And one thing about pastries, it was predictable. It worked every single time. You followed the recipe, we got amazing results. And unfortunately, while on the outside, and I'm sure many people can relate to this, on the outside, things are great. People are probably envious. Wow, look at Morty, he has everything together. It's amazing. It's spectacular. On the inside, I was falling apart. And like most people, the stuff didn't start in my 20s. It didn't start in my 30s. It started from when I was a young person. And unfortunately, I grew up feeling unsafe in my body. I didn't feel at home there. I felt scared and I felt terrified. And as a young child, when you tell a parent, I'm scared, and they say, oh, don't worry about it, what you start to learn is that your feelings and your body doesn't matter. And that's terrifying for a young person who, in the world, it's a big world. It's scary. Our parents are our gods. They're the most important people in our lives. And unfortunately, and it's kind of ironic that the most important task parents are dealt is to raise their children, and there's no manual. There's no guidebook. And it's kind of surprising. I have no idea why God did that. I'll ask him one day when I get up there, because it makes absolutely no sense. We have a car, we have a manual. A doctor goes to school. Yeah, we have the most important and precious human being being brought into the world. And so to say, we have to guess. And unfortunately, many of our parents have been hurt in their own ways. So they're coming to relationships hurt and broken and wounded, maybe even without knowing. Maybe even some children are unexpected, which that wasn't my situation. But working with clients, hearing them say, I was the unwanted child, is one of the most painful experiences a human being could have. Morty, I was unwanted. I was a mistake. And they grow up believing their whole life that they're a mistake. I wasn't a mistake. My parents were young. They were in their, I think my mom was 19. My father was 21. I was probably born maybe 11 months after they got married. So I was their oldest. And I made them parents. And I like to say I taught them all they knew. And that's the reality. But what I remember from my childhood was a sense of my home is not a home I want to be in. It's not a home I want to live in. I asked my parents a number of times, I want to move out. I don't like being here. I don't feel safe. I probably didn't say I don't feel safe because I didn't have those words. I just said I want to move out. And my parents would say, no, you want to stay here. We want you to stay here. And then one day, it's one of the most etched memories in my mind that I will never forget. My parents said to me, if you want to leave, no problem. We found you a new home. My parents did the best they could. I know that today the relationship has evolved and we've gotten over a lot of the wounding and we healed. And in that moment, as a 6, 7-year-old child, a child is being told by his parent, we're okay if you move out. We're going to find you a new home. It was one of the most unsafe moments in my life. And that led me down a path that I wish I never went down. And what I learned from that experience and from my life is that we get hurt in relationships. We get hurt from other people, mostly. Sometimes we hurt ourselves. We get into car accidents. We get into things happen. But most of our wounding comes from other people. And because of that, the healing must come from other people. It's so easy to tell an adult, just love yourself. Easy to say that. How many times have I told that to clients? And I forget that they were never taught what that is. They don't even know what love means. They don't know what caring means. They were never taught that as a child. So when you tell somebody to do something as an adult, they don't have a frame of reference for that. And it's extremely painful existence because if you struggled with trauma, if you struggled with abuse, if you struggled with addiction, many people just don't get it. They say if you wanted it more, if you wanted it enough, you would just do it. And unfortunately, if you were hurt as a young person, your body and your mind has gotten hijacked. And to expect someone to free themselves out of that, it's impossible. And the more we tell them to do that, the harder it becomes because the more shame they feel. They're like, wow, not only was I hurt, now as an adult, I can't get myself out of it. So I digress. It was a childhood of pain and misery. And the only way I knew how to cope as a child, my first drug of choice was food. And it's something that's really overlooked. Many people are struggling throughout their life with food, and maybe they're eating too much, maybe they're eating too little, they're using food. What they don't realize is, of course, they're doing that. I have so much empathy and compassion for myself and for others because that was the first medicine. That was the first entity in the world that said, Morty, I support you. I'm here for you. You don't have to answer any questions. I'm always available. I'll never turn on you. I'll never shame you. I'll never embarrass you. So food became my first love in a way, became my first comfort. And because of that, it's one of the most challenging pieces to unwind, right? I work with men. They come, we can help them get over addiction. We can help them get over shame. The food piece, and not only the food piece, there's a deeper piece that especially men don't want to talk about, is the body shame, the body dysmorphia piece. So many men walk around, again, on the outside, they're doing well, they're making money, they're successful. And on the inside, they hate the way they look. They're so embarrassed about themselves. And they tell themselves, I'll be happy when. And I remember we did an exercise. This was back in 2014. I don't believe they would do this nowadays. But I'll share with you what we did because it was something so magical. I was in a group of men, and our therapist was talking about this piece. And everyone's like, nah, this is stupid. This is ridiculous. What are you talking about? And I'm going to tell you what he did. I don't know if it was ethical, but I'm just telling you what we did anyways. He said, I'm going to tell it to you, 2014, I think we're past, isn't there like, you can't go back more than 7 years? I don't know. He told us, everybody take off their shirt and go look at yourself in the mirror. And people had a very hard time doing that. It was tragic to watch how men on the outside were so macho, yet on the inside, without their clothing on, naked, not naked, but without anything hiding who they really are, without the mask, without the fancy clothing, they felt so unworthy. They were so embarrassed about themselves. And you had men share about, I don't like the way this part of my body looks. I don't like the way this part of my body looks. And a lot of the healing that I see and witness is just from feeling seen, from feeling I could share something in a group, something that I was so embarrassed about, something that I had so much shame about, and I thought no one else struggled with it. And I come to a group, and obviously it has to be a safe group. Well, when you build that and you share, hey, I'm struggling with, I don't like the way my body looks, and another guy turns to you and says, I get it, I'm the same way. There's no more profound healing that I experienced than that. So this is just the start of where my wounding was, where my pain was. And I was able to take my pain and my hurt and turn it into my passion and turn it into my mission. Elisha, I want to bring you on this conversation. Any reflections thus far? Just curious what you're hearing and what you're feeling.
Sure. So what I'm thinking is that how shame is, because you had mentioned that your parents had put you out. Were you a child? Were you a young child when you?
Thank you. That's one of the pieces that happens to me. I get there's so many pieces to talk about. So my parents, thank you for following up on that. My parents asked me that question, and I said to them, I do not want to leave the house. Yet, so thank you for clarifying that. Yet, despite the fact that I actually never left, just being told that Morty, that was traumatic. And I want to tell you something that's a lie that we grew up with. It's a song, at least they sung it where I was. I'm curious if you know this song. It goes like this. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that's not true. That's not a reality.
Because
when my parents told me that, while physically they didn't touch me, I had a deep somatic experience. It touched me deep in my body. I felt that in my gut. And it was as if my parents took me and punched me. So many times people are like, well, at least I'm not abusing my children. At least I'm not hitting them. And I say to them, when you're shaming your child, what you're doing is punching them in the face. And they're like, what do you mean? I said to them, your child, when he thinks back to that moment, he's going to feel that in his body. So as in a sense, you've touched them or hurt them in a way that's also physical. And it's very strange for people to hear that. And it also brings out the power of our words. And while words could used to be to damage, there's also so much power in words to be healing. Because again, I heard a motivational speech. It's not just cognitive. It's, I feel it in my body. It really lands. It's like someone just gave me a hug. It's like someone just tapped me on the back and said, Morty, you got this. So we really underestimate the power of words and the power that they have to hurt and the power they have to support people.
So how did you heal from your trauma? What did that journey look like for you, Morty?
Yeah. So, and I think to me, that's one of the most important pieces in the sense of so many times I share my story and we could just talk about the darkness and the pain and the misery. And it's like, after 2 minutes, you're like, Morty, I know what pain is. I know what suffering is. It's like, if you know, you know. And if you don't know, then you probably know somebody else that knows that pain. So that pain's around us. So I thank you for that question because it's so important to talk about what is the journey? What is the healing? And for me, it takes time. And the journey, it's ever evolves. And as soon as I think, so to say, I've made it and I've gotten there, I realize there's another piece.
Right.
And what that reminds me again is that really the journey is the destination. Because if I'm only going to be happy when, I'm going to have a problem. Because So many times I told myself I'm going to be happy when, then I got to there. I'm going to be happy when I go down to a specific weight, right? I struggled a lot with that. I'm going to get to this weight. I'm going to be happy. I got to that weight. And guess what? I wasn't happy. And then I went lower and lower and lower. So
So
unfortunately, yeah,
how did you do that, Morty? How did you get to getting lower and lower and lower? What did that look like for you?
the weight.
Yeah.
So I was brought up in a time, and actually had a conversation with my grandmother about this about a year ago, but I was brought up in diet culture. And unfortunately, this is also a topic that people don't want to talk about. Diets don't work. And the way that I know they don't work is because if they did, I wouldn't have had to try 10 or 15 different ones. It just would have happened. So the way that I lost weight was I tried many, many diets, but what I never really learned was that food was my best friend. And when you're telling me to stop doing X, I didn't realize it myself either. You're telling me, oh, just kill your best friend. And that I wasn't willing to do. I was willing to do it for a time. And I thought that I would be motivated forever. But ultimately, what I was really seeking and searching for was safety in my body, was to feel at home in this vessel.
That's so
Food,
important.
yeah. Please go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just saying that's so important to feel safe in your own body. That's
Right.
extremely important.
So if you're up to it, if I could just read you what I wrote the other day, I think it will talk to a lot of
Yes,
the pieces that
please.
you're asking. I wrote after speaking to you last week about just think about what my story. I wrote something that the audience probably could resonate with deeply. So it's entitled "This Body's on Fire" by Morty Gottlieb, yours truly. When I was a child, I checked the locks every night. Once, twice, sometimes 10 times. I'd sit on top of the steps, staring at the front door, just waiting to see if someone would break in. So essentially, as a young child, I didn't feel safe in my own home. I felt like someone was out to get me. That's the moment I learned what it means to live inside a body that doesn't feel safe. Adults said, "Stop worrying, you're fine." But I wasn't fine. My heart was pounding. My stomach twisted until I felt sick. I was a little kid sitting in the dark guarding a house that was supposed to protect me. That's what trauma does. It turns your home, which is your body, into a battlefield. It lights a fire under your skin and tells you, stay alert or you won't survive. And so you grow up burning. I want people to really envision this only because we say, well, we're adults, we're not children anymore. But the reality is, so many times we're adults, we get activated, and then we have a flashback. We go back to that part of us when we were small, and we start feeling the same feelings.
Right.
Sometimes that fire feels like panic, your chest exploding like a siren. Sometimes it's heat, a fever you can't break. Sometimes it's...
Hi there, friends. Elisha here. You and I, we're on this winding road of life together, and I'd like to share a little piece of my soul with you, something to bring us closer on this shared journey of growth and self-discovery. The Mental Health Handbook is a piece of that shared journey, and it's not just a collection of my thoughts. It's a sanctuary where we can learn resilience and arm ourselves with self-care tools for those days that just feel too heavy. Consider it a conversation between friends, one that I hope brings you comfort and strength. And for those times when we seek quiet reflection, I've crafted the Mindfulness Coloring Book for Adults. Picture us side by side, lost in the simple joy of coloring, allowing the stillness and the words of peace and forgiveness to wrap around us like warm embrace. I want these books to be part of your journey, to walk with you and guide you towards a fuller, more peaceful heart. It's a path we travel together, one filled with understanding, care, and the gentle reminder that you're not alone. Both the Mental Health Handbook and Mindfulness Coloring Book for Adults are waiting for you on Amazon and at the Restoring You Christian Counseling website. These spaces are more than just stories. They're gateways to the experiences we can share and grow from. Let's take this step to nurture our mental and spiritual health together. Find the books And let's start unfolding the beauty and strength that lies within us, page by page, color by color. Thank you for letting me part of your journey. Here's to the discoveries we'll make and the peace we'll find together.
Chaos, 1,000 alarms going off at once, and sometimes it's numbness. So much fire that you can't even feel the burn anymore. And the world says, just breathe, just do it, push through. But how do you push through when your whole body's on fire, when every breath feels like smoke? We call that healing, but that's not healing. That's walking barefoot across a metal floor, pretending it doesn't hurt. I've been burned over and over again by a system that said, if you want to heal, expose yourself. Like they say, just do it. And I believe them. So I kept running into the flames until I realized the goal isn't to prove that I can survive the fire. The goal is to put out the fire. We talk about trauma everywhere, therapy offices, classrooms, social media, but really do we talk about, safety? Mm-hmm. We tell people, tell your story, but we don't hand them the water. We don't ask, how can I soothe you while you tell it? We say you have to feel it to heal it, but we never teach them how to feel safely. Unsafe healing keeps people burning and then blames them for the smoke. When trauma survivors use food or sex or alcohol, when they gamble or overwork or isolate, they're not weak. They're trying to control the flames. They're trying to build even 1 inch of safety in a world that keeps telling them to ignore their own alarms. And what do? We judge them for the things they do to survive instead of seeing the fire they're fighting. This isn't just about trauma survivors. This is about all of us because the world itself is on fire. We live in a culture that rewards disconnection. We feed children sugar and chemicals and call it breakfast. We ignore their restlessness, their tears, their exhaustion, and we blame them for being difficult. We tell them to sit still when their bodies are screaming to move. We teach them, don't listen to yourself, we know better. And those children grow up believing their hunger is weakness, their tiredness is laziness, their fear is failure. We have trained an entire generation to mistrust their own bodies, and then we wonder why no one feels safe. We mistaken numbness for strength. We've glorified endurance and forgotten how to feel. To every trauma survivor, you are doing your best. And this I want to break off for a second about doing your best. I always tell people you're doing your best. They say, I am not doing my best. And I say to them, with your trauma, with your history, with your attachment wounds, with your brokenness, with all the shame that you've been taught, you are doing your best. You know how I know? Because if you could do better, you would. You know how I know you would? Because your will and your desire is there and you just can't. So obviously, you're doing the best you could, but people are taught to blame themselves and shame themselves. Safety doesn't look like perfection. It looks like permission. It looks like saying nothing has to be so hard. When I procrastinate, and this is a really big one, I'm a big procrastinator. And I didn't know why, and I blame myself. I'm lazy, I have ADHD, and there's something here that's so important that really could change people's perception. It's not because I'm unmotivated. It's because my body doesn't feel safe enough to move. When I cancel plans, it's not avoidance. It's a cry for safety. And sometimes for a moment, I find it, that sweet feeling sense of calm, but it doesn't last because it's not rooted in trust, and I burn again. The solution isn't more thinking, it's in feeling together. We heal in community because we hurt in isolation. We heal through safe touch because we were wounded by unsafe touch. And again, this is something that's so challenging in today's day and age. People were hurt by touch, yet how do we find safe enough touch that could heal us? We heal when someone looks at us and says, I believe you, you are safe here. Imagine therapy rooms that teach people how to actually feel safe in their bodies. Groups where safety isn't just a word, it's built into every breath, every gaze, every silence. Facilitators who understand that sociometry, connection, these aren't luxuries, they're the medicine. Imagine if every healthcare provider asked, how can I help your body feel safe, before asking what's wrong with you. This one question could change everything. When I picture healing now, I don't see my body engulfed in flames. I see the fire beneath me, the kind that lifts rockets into the sky. I see myself rising not because I ignored the fire, but because I learned to harness it, because I turned pain into propulsion. This is what healing can be. Not running into the flames, but learning that we were never meant to burn. You were meant to shine. Coming home to yourself means you no longer run away. You sit inside your own skin and say, this is mine, this is sacred, this is safe. So my plea to the world, we need to stop glorifying survival and start honoring safety. We need to stop telling people to be brave and start teaching them to feel safe again. We need a healthcare system that doesn't just diagnose, but dignifies. Schools that teach children to trust their bodies instead of punishing them for feelings. We need leaders, teachers, parents who understand that healing is about fixing, it's about listening, because trauma is not what happens to us, it's what happens inside of us when no one was there to hold us. If my younger self could hear me now, I would say to him, and I'd look into his scary eyes and I'd whisper, you made it, you're safe now, you could rest. And to everyone here, to everyone who has ever felt unsafe, whoever's reading this, in their own bodies, you're not broken, you're burning for a reason, and that reason is transformation.
That's beautiful. I love that. That is beautiful. What steps did you take to feel safe for you?
Right. So even in this realm of healing, in this realm of feeling safe in my body, again, it's like to tell people to go into their body and just notice their feelings is so painful and it's so scary, like we just talked about. I have a different approach. I have a different angle and a different perspective, one that makes healing less scary and more fun. I had an experience about 3 years ago. I was at a retreat center and they said they're having this, it was called ecstatic dance or embodied movement. I had no idea what that was, never heard of such a thing. And I went to this class, and the class was, they put on music, and everyone was told to move how they feel.
I love that.
And no one ever told me that. It was so, Morty, do like this, sit where your legs cross, sit with your hands in mudra, sit like this, sit like that, sit like yay, stand, sit. And I was brought into a world that I did not know existed, and it was called ecstatic dance or somatic body work. And I was able to find a group of people, and it really shaped and influenced a lot of the work that I do today. We had a Wednesday night group, we met, it was called the Curious and Silly Dance Experiment, which was a place for adults to learn to feel safe in their bodies. And the way we did that was we started to learn how to play again, how to have fun, right? Because when children are having fun, they're playing with their friends. They're not anxious. They're not worried. They just in the moment and they feel alive. And to me, how do we help adults bring that part up in themselves again? How do we teach them that it's okay to play tag as an adult, that it's okay to play Red Rover, it's okay to play red light, green light? And while when I tell it to people initially, they're like, wow, that's weird, that's this, it's that. But the reality is what we're teaching us, what we're teaching them, is it's okay to play again. It's okay to have fun. Because what we learn by having fun is that I could feel safe in my body. The number one problem people have.
So important.
Isn't that important? But it's so underrated. And the reality is, I tell myself this every day. If there's only one thing I could do in the world, there's a lot of things that I want to do. If there's only one thing I could do, I would create communities of people to start experiencing embodied movement. Because a lot of what trauma does is it shuts down. It makes us feel small. It makes us freeze. It makes us hesitate. It makes us pause. And when it comes to embodied movement, what I learn is I can move however I want. People are looking at me. People are judging me. What I learn is, doesn't make a difference. Everyone's going to judge me anyways. If I do what everyone tells me I'm supposed to do, everyone's looking at me anyways. Why you're not doing like that, or you're not doing it perfectly? Somatic movement teaches me that when I take a step, even if it wasn't the perfect step, it's too late. Don't have to think about it because I'm already on to the next step. It teaches me, yeah.
So it sounds like you went into a place of accepting yourself, like all of you. Everything that doing that exercise brought you to a place of saying, I'm good. Is that right?
Exactly right. And the way it did that was I could dance in my house and there would be a tremendous amount of healing. And doing it in community, doing it with other people, and doing it without words. That's the other piece. So many times as trauma survivors, we're told, just talk about it and you'll feel better. Let's process it. But for people that struggle with trauma, sometimes they don't have the words. Even if they have the words, they don't want to use the words. So what's it like in a class if I come in and had a rough day and I'm feeling angry? What does it look like to move in a way that's angry? If I'm feeling joy, not to express it and say it. What does it look like? How do I embody joy? And when I express it through my body, it moves through me. Emotions are not meant to last. I have a riddle I ask all my clients. I say to them, how come joy lasts from seconds to minutes, and pain and sadness and fear lasts from days to weeks to months? And the answer is simple. And we do when I do it in a group, I go on the board and I ask people, what do you do when you feel fear or sadness? And they write, well, I use drugs, I drink alcohol, I go on my phone, I use Facebook. Then I say to them, what do you do when you feel joy? I jump up and down, I tell someone, I feel it. And the answer becomes clear. The reason why we're continuously suffering is because we're avoiding our feelings.
And you know something? A lot of trauma rests in the body. So the movement, I always encourage people to do some sort of movement because the movement helps to release it.
Right. That's exactly meaning instead of telling somebody, go into your body and feel like crap. No, we're not saying that. No, don't feel like that. Right. Just move. Allow your body to show you. Start trusting your body, because if you're in a group of people and you say to everyone, move around like you're a tiger, all of a sudden everyone knows what to do. Yeah, go ahead.
So did you have any around like that? I'm sure that was interesting. Did you have any emotional responses for yourself when you were doing the movement though? Because sometimes when people do the movement, there's an emotional release.
Sure. So it could look like crying.
Right.
It could look like shaking, scream. Right. And see, and that's the beautiful thing in these spaces is everything's welcome. Where do you have an opportunity in the world to say, however I'm feeling, show up as you are? I used to come from that class right from work, take off my work clothes, put on shorts and a t-shirt. And for the first time that week, I was able to be me. That means if I felt angry, I could act angry. If I wanted to move, I moved. If I didn't want to move, I didn't move. And people were there and supported that. It was a community of people. And to me, people used to come to the group and they would say they experienced more healing in that 2 hours than they experienced in years of therapy or years of trying. And if I could,
that though, right?
Right. And I'm like, I'm waiting for the universe just to either find me somebody to help me launch this. But if I could go around from city to city, forget about creating groups ongoingly, that's challenging. And people experience even one time in their life, I could feel at home in my body. I could feel safe in this vessel. They will then be encouraged to do the work because they know that it's possible. Telling someone they could feel safe in their body when they never experienced that is extremely challenging. But if we could give them that experience in a way that's fun, that's playful, because no group that's going to be beneficial for somebody is going to work unless there's safety. So the first piece to every group is building community, is building safety. And it doesn't start with people sharing their biggest, darkest traumas, because that's not safe. It starts with, I'll give you a typical way I open up a group, and it's very simple and it sounds almost pathetic, and it starts building safety in a way that's safe. I say to them, let's make a line. Here's January 1st. First, I make a joke. I say, does everyone know their birthday? They say yes. I say, great. Now, don't worry about the year, because I know people are self-conscious about that. Let's just take the date. Here's January 1st. Here's December 29th. Line up by your birthday. What that does is it encourages people to talk about something that's not, it encourages people to talk about their birthday, which is not that personal. And that starts building safety. You then do it with people's names. There's so many You didn't have people walk around the room and just look at somebody in the eye. Just walk around, then keep going. You start building mini safeties, and people start learning that it's okay to feel safe in their body. And then they could go ahead and do the work because they know that on the other side, they could get there. But if they don't know that it's possible, it's hard to be motivated to actually do the work.
So, okay. I totally and completely agree with that. I think that's good information and I agree with that. I really appreciate you coming and sharing your story and why you're so driven within your mission. That is extremely important too. So I appreciate that you're that way. Um, what can we, if someone wants to contact you, how can they reach you?
Yeah. So I would be happy to talk. Anybody that wants to talk about embodied movement, I'm happy to talk about it. If you want to start a group or a class, if you put it together, I will fly down anywhere in the United States on my dime. So if anybody's out there that has a group of people, I will come down there and do that. If you want to reach me,
Cool beans.
you can reach me out through my website. It's called thegamechangergroup.com. You could Google me, Morty Gottlieb. I come up. You could see some other funny videos about me. Or you could call me. I always appreciate a phone call. I'll give you my phone number, 480-447-9115. Either I'll answer, my assistant will answer. And I think the most important message I want to leave for people is that even if you haven't experienced healing yet, even if you tried many modalities, just know that if you're a survivor of trauma and you haven't done the somatic and the embodied healing, that's probably what you still need. And if you tried that and it didn't work, then call me and we could there's plenty of other solutions. I always say there's 86 things you need to try before you need to give up hope. So until you try that, there's hope for you and everyone else out there.
So audience, we're going to also have a part 2 to this episode. Part 2 will be more practical things that you can do. We're going to go more into the self-talk of and the narratives that you speak over. You can speak over yourself when you are a survivor of trauma, and also learn a little bit about Morty too. So I want to thank you for joining us here in Elisha Space. This is a sanctuary where we have authentic conversations. And if today's conversation resonated with you, remember to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Consider leaving us a rating or review. And your feedback helps us grow and reach others. So if you know of others who, let's help get the message out so people can get the support and resources that they need. So, Morty, thank you so much for joining us today. And you are shared so much within our show. I can't wait to do our next part 2, where we can get into even more practical things. We can learn some things that we can do. So I will talk with you. So audience, I will see you next time. And Morty, thank you for joining the show.